Jim Jordan has been serving in Congress since 2007. He was the founding chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. As the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and a member of the Oversight Committee, the congressman is raising concerns over documents that claim the Treasury Department is surveilling private transactions and flagging merchant codes like MAGA and Trump as somehow being violent extremist indicators. And get this, also included were purchases of Bibles and small firearms. You can't make this stuff up. The Treasury Department so far has no explanation. To discuss all of this, please welcome back to the show one of our favorites, Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman, I'm going to get right to this. This is just alarming, and you have sent a letter to the financial services monitors, and you've asked them for accountability. But this is disturbing that American citizens will be surveilled because of what they purchase, as if that's any of the government's business.
No, it's scary. Financial surveillance is really what this is. You got banks looking at the private transactions of their customers, searching for key terms, all at the request of the government. And it looks like they did this without any warrant or any legal process whatsoever. And they're almost like they're developing a profile of American citizens. If you buy a Bible at the Christian bookstore, you buy a gun at Cabela's, and you use in some of the correspondence with whoever you're buying something, you talk about Trump or MAGA, then they're going to profile you as some domestic violent extremist. And the scary thing is, we're just at the front end of this. But as you look at some of these documents, Governor, they sound a lot like, if you remember, that memorandum from the Richmond field office of the FBI that we discovered a year ago, where they were saying if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist. The language sounds so similar to what we saw in that government document. That's why we're pushing so hard to get answers to these questions. How extensive was this really?
I'm just stunned by this, that the government would think they could get away with it, but apparently they thought they could. But I want to make sure that our audience clearly understands what we're talking about. This is not suspicion of a criminal. This is not some suspicion that law enforcement has tagged and said this person may be involved in a crime. This is surveillance of absolutely law-abiding citizens who go, as you say, to a sporting goods store and maybe buy a rifle for hunting or a firearm for personal protection, doesn't matter, whatever they buy it for, or a Bible. And the government is surveilling their purchases by working with the bank card companies, whether it's Bank of America, whoever, finding out what those transactions are and keeping a file. Congressman, this reminds me of East Germany and the Stasi, not the United States of America. What on earth can you guys do to put a stop to this?
Yeah, and this all started when we had a whistleblower come forward and talk to us about an email correspondence between the government and Bank of America after the riot on January 6th a few years back. And in that email, they say, we want to know all debit and credit card purchases within a certain date time around January 6th. And then they wanted to overlay that with any gun purchase at any time as a way to develop a list of who they were going to look at. No reason, no predicate, to criminally investigate these individuals. They were just looking for this information. So if you happen to be in, Washington, D.C. on January 6th of 2021 visiting a relative, and you use your debit card to, pay for a hotel bill, and you had a gun that you were on an FBI list, for goodness sake, according to this whistleblower. So this is where it started. We've now got some additional documents. But you're right, Governor, this is as scary as it gets. Financial surveillance of American citizens. And remember, this came on the past year in Congress. We did an extensive investigation into the censorship, where you had big government, big tech, big media, big academia, all working together to censor Americans. Now we're looking at this financial surveillance issue, and we got a lot of questions, a lot of information we got to get, but we're going to make sure we do.
You're in a unique position because as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, this certainly deals with the constitutional rights of an American, First and Second Amendment, as well as Fourth and Fifth Amendment. So, we're covering almost the entire Bill of Rights by these actions. Then as oversight committee member, you're also looking at it from the standpoint of asking these federal agencies, what the heck are you guys doing? Who gave you the authority to do what you're doing? So I don't know of anybody in all of Congress who's in a more unique position because of the crossover of these two committees. And, I think on behalf of all the American people, we're saying, Congressman, go get them. I mean, our freedom is on the line. I want people to understand this is not a minor thing.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Yeah, and because of some of the work we've done, the committee's work we've done this first year of the Congress, we've had some success. I mean, there's constant attacks on your liberty and on Americans' freedom. But remember, the IRS announced 4 months ago that they will no longer be making unannounced visits to Americans' homes. And of course, the commissioner said, well, we're doing this because we're concerned about the safety of our agents. Baloney. They made this change because we caught them knocking on Matt Taibbi's door at the very time he was testifying in front of our committee. We also had the Department of Homeland Security announce that they had this disinformation governance board, as if some federal agency can determine what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. When we discovered this, the Department of Homeland Security said, we're getting rid of this board. So you got to stay after this, but we have had some success when we expose this information, get it out there to the American people that these agencies change their behavior. That's what's got to happen here with the way the banks and government are interacting, profiling American citizens.
How troubling is it to you that for the past 3 years, the Biden administration has targeted private citizens, whether school board meetings and domestic terrorist labels applied to parents because they chose to speak up for their kids? But here's the big issue. I'm hearing every day on the mainstream media that Donald Trump is going to be a dictator, that he's going to abuse government. He's going to go after retribution. In his 4 years, we never saw one single moment of him abusing his power as president, sicking the DOJ on anybody or any other agency. That's all we see from this administration.
Yep.
I mean, this election is really more than a Democrat versus a Republican. It's maybe freedom versus dictatorship, and the dictatorship won't come at the hands of Donald Trump.
No, great point. President Trump has a lot of great lines he uses when he's out talking. We were with him in Iowa last week at a rally. And oftentimes he will say, they're coming after me because I'm fighting for you. But he actually changed the line in Indianola, Iowa last week. He said, they're coming after my freedom because I'm fighting for yours. And the country understands it. In Iowa, I think the polling showed 8 out of 10 Republican voters believe the government has been turned, weaponized against we the people, against the citizens they're supposed to serve. They think that because it's true. And they know President Trump is going to fight to stop that. And as you point out, he didn't do that. The left does it. They've targeted, the DOJ said parents were terrorists. The FBI said pro-life Catholics are extremists. And now we see big government working with big banks, profiling America's purchasing choices and surveilling them in those transactions. That is all frightening stuff. And it's why this election, as you pointed out, is so darn important. And that we got to make sure, do everything we can to make sure President Trump not only gets a nomination, which I think is definitely going to happen, but wins in November and is our next president.
Another area where you're going to be involved very heavily is looking at all the allegations of the Hunter Biden case, not about Hunter Biden, but about his connection to his father and the millions of dollars from the Chinese and oligarchs from Ukraine and Russia. Hunter Biden has now agreed he's going to come in and sit for closed-door depositions. How big a deal is it that he's finally accepted the subpoena from Congress?
Well, no, we think it's important because it's a sequence of people we need to talk to before we make a decision on whether we're going to move forward with articles of impeachment or not. We have Rob Walker next week, who we're talking to, who is one of Hunter Biden's business partners. We're going to talk with Eric Schwerin, another one of his business partners, the week after that. The week after that is Tony Bobolinsky. Then we got Jim Biden, who is scheduled. We're scheduling him. And then we got Hunter Biden, who's coming in at the end of February. So we got to work through those. And I think the case is already pretty darn compelling. But we need to talk to these final witnesses and then make a decision. Do we actually file articles of impeachment against President Biden? And the conference will, the Republicans and the House of Representatives will make that decision once we've received all the evidence.
And you've got a big budget issue coming up. I know that's also controversial for a lot of the Republicans. Will there be a budget deal? And should there be, given the terms that are being put on the table?
Well, look, there was a continuing resolution passed this week. We'll see how it all shakes out. What I do know is we got a FISA reform that needs to happen to protect Americans' liberties. We got this issue of securing the border, which I think is of paramount importance that we got to get done. So we're going to focus on all those issues under the leadership of Speaker Johnson.
Congressman, we always love having you. Hope to have you back in the studio in Nashville soon. Our thanks for doing the important work of oversight that you're doing in Congress. And we also want to remind our audience, if you'd like to keep up with the developments of all of these issues and with Congressman Jordan's work on Capitol Hill, if you go to Huckabee.tv, follow the links, we will get you directly connected. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.